Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of College Football Mornings, brought to you by campus2canton.com. It is August 29th. We've almost wrapped up August. We're about to be into September. We've got college football officially kicking off this week on Thursday. Loaded slate. Moxley's going to join us here in just a minute to give you guys that early look at those lines. Then you've got games on Saturday, Friday, completely skip Friday. Great games on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even a Monday Night Football game to fill in the place for NFLs, and they kick off the next week. So we're about to be in full swing here. On Monday mornings, my goal is to kind of recap what happened over the weekend for college and high school. Moxley, as I mentioned, will be joining to give you an early look at lines, especially as we get later into the season. You're going to have college football games on Wednesdays and Thursdays, some Tuesday, Maction, baby. We're going to have games every day of the week, so we've got to get you guys covered as quickly as possible. Of course, always check out campus2canton.com. We'll have a ton of articles on there as well, talking about everything going on. For today's show, though, we are going to recap a lot of the games that happened over the past couple days. Again, it wasn't a massive slate in week 0, so not a lot of big games to talk about, but we are going to look at some of them here. So Moxley, as I just put up, he's about to hit you guys with the early lines. Mox, let's hit him with the early lines so I can recap what happened this weekend. Well, before I actually send it to Moxley for this, I completely forgot we are doing Players of the Week this year, and I will be announcing them on College Football Mornings. I'm going to kick it off with the Freshman of the Week, who we will talk about here in a little bit as well as we recap the UNC game. Congratulations to Amarion Hampton. 14 carries, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Absolutely incredible job in week 0 here as the Freshman of the Week. Now, throw it over to Moxley so he can hit us with some of those looks at the early lines.
Welcome into our first look at early lines. It is Monday morning, and I am your host, Chris Moxley. You can find me at Chris Moxley19, and obviously everything I do at campuscan.com. As will be true for the rest of the season, Monday, first look at the lines that drop Sunday, and give us a couple games that we want to target before we see movement. I got 3 this week that I really like, and I think are going to end up a lot higher than where they currently are. Last week, we gave you Nevada and New Mexico State and Vanderbilt and Hawaii. We got 3 points of line value on each. Those are big numbers. Let's see if we can do that again this week. Our first game, TCU is favored by 10.5, and they are heading to Colorado. In my opinion, these teams aren't even in the same conversation currently. Colorado is in a massive rebuild. I think TCU is an up-and-coming program. I really like the hire of Sonny Dykes. I don't know how Colorado's going to score in this game, to be honest. TCU has a really solid front 7. I really like Dylan Horton, who's a D lineman there, and D Winters is like a tackle machine at linebacker. They also have a really great secondary. I don't really like Brendan Lewis, the quarterback for Colorado. I don't think he's a very good passer, but I don't know how he's going to be able to throw on Hodges Tomlinson, who is a really solid corner. I guess he probably covers RJ Sneed, but I don't know where the offense is coming from here. The TCU defense did underperform last year, so that's basically the hope if you're taking the Colorado side here. I just think they have too much talent. I think they have 4 or 5 really good producers on this team that we're going to look at and are going to make impacts against Colorado. Colorado's offense was about a 5 unit last year. I think TCU's going to be able to score here. I think that Colorado is an okay defensive line. Certainly, they're probably their best position group, but I think TCU is just going to light it up. I believe Chandler Morris is going to start, and 10.5 points for 2 teams that really aren't in the same conversation is a good number. I actually think it's probably going to end up closer to 13.5 or 14. So if we can get TCU 10.5 now, that's really nice. Let's go to our next game, one that I think will move as well, and that is Tulsa, favored 3.5, heading to Laramie to face the Wyoming Cowboys. We saw how bad Wyoming was on this Saturday. Andrew Peasley went 5 for 20, averaging 1.5 yards per attempt. This team is terrible. We talked about it coming into the season. There was a lot of transfers under Craig Bohl. I think the program is heading in the wrong direction currently. I think the best chance Wyoming has to win this game is to feed the ball to Titus Swen. I think that's going to be a problem because Tulsa's defensive line is quite good. Anthony Goodlow is a great player, and I think they're going to be able to get to Andrew Peasley pretty easily. I mean, their defense is pretty solid in all things considered. I think even if they can get through a tough defensive line, Justin Wright's a really good player in the front seven who could cause a little bit of havoc. He's a tackling machine as well. I do think that they're going to have a tough time moving the ball. They had a tough time moving the ball against Illinois, and I think Illinois and Tulsa are not that far off. I do think Illinois is the better team, but I don't think they're that much worse than Illinois. They're probably within 10 or 15 spots in my rankings. So, I mean, I really don't want to be touching Wyoming. And Tulsa's a great offense. I really like what they're doing in the AAC. Davis Brennan's a quality quarterback. I think he can score on Wyoming. JC Santana and Keelan Stokes are a good wide receiver duo, but I think they're probably going to keep the ball on the ground a lot with Eric Prince and Anthony Watkins. I think that a great running back duo for the AAC. We just saw Wyoming get tore up by Chase Brown. They let him get 180 yards. I really don't think that they're going to be able to stop this offense. And that's not saying much. Considering how poor Wyoming played, I would not be surprised if this line ended up 7.5, maybe. I think we're trending in a very negative direction if you're taking Wyoming in this one. But now we get Tulsa 3.5. I will play it up to 6.5. And if it doesn't end up there, I will just take the we might be in the alt line city business. So let's see where that goes. But Tulsa 3.5 currently is great value. Final game, and I think this is a game where the wrong team is straight up favored. The Fighting Illini head to Indiana, and they are 3.5-point dogs, which I think is a little ridiculous. And I like this game before we even saw them dominate Wyoming on Saturday. This team is just better than Indiana. By like a good amount, in my opinion. Like I was surprised that the line was 5 last week. It's now 3.5, and I think it's going to keep falling. And I really, really want to get it above 3 if I can. We talked about key numbers. 3 is obviously a key number because that's a field goal. If we can get it within 3.5, I love it. Really, really love it. Indiana's weakest position group is defensive line. The front seven is probably among the country's, well, at least among the conference's worst. Chase Brown is probably going to run for 150 yards again. We just saw what he did to Wyoming. I'm not sure the defensive line for Indiana is really all that good. I just don't like Indiana's defensive line. I worry a lot about it, and I think the secondary is okay. So I don't think Tommy DeVito is going to need to look to pass all that much. I do think that you're going to be able to get some good value. The one worry is, okay, what happens if Chase Brown, can they rotate him a little bit? He's probably going to get 40 carries, 30 at least carries. Josh McCray went down, but they do get Isaiah Williams back. Isaiah Williams was an injury that happened in the Wyoming game, and he was taken out. It was just cramps. He could have gone back in, Brett Bielema said. So I think the offense is going to really take it to Indiana. I don't know how Indiana's really going to score. Illinois, again, has a good front seven. That's a theme here on which teams I think should be favored this week. Keith Randolph, Jerzon Newton, both excellent players. They had really good games against Wyoming, too. Each had 6 tackles apiece and really stuffed them for the most part. And Titus Swinton was a good running back. He was efficient on the ground, but I just think they caused so much havoc in the backfield, especially for Andrew Peasley, that I don't think Connor Bazelak, the Indiana quarterback, is going to have a good time either. So, again, I like Illinois 3.5, and I like the Illinois money line, depending on what you can get it at. I have it at 170 from when it was 5. It's probably about 145 right now, but taking it plus 145 is good value. I think that Illinois might end up favored by the end of the week, or at worst, maybe this game becomes a pick 'em. But I'm taking the Illini. I like the Illini. I think they match up well against this Indiana team that honestly lost a lot through the transfer portal as well. So, round it up. TCU minus 10.5 at Colorado, Tulsa minus 3.5 at Wyoming, and the Fighting Illini plus 3.5 and the money line at Indiana. We'll be doing this every Monday, giving you the picks. Hopefully before we get line movement, so we can crush some of those key numbers. We got it last week. It worked out great for us. In the Vanderbilt game, it ended up not mattering. We got line movement in the Nevada game. Ended up not mattering either. But if we do that consistently, it will result in positive expected value. So let's see if we can get it on these 3 as well.
Thank you, Mox. He killed it last week with the betting stuff. Going to join me every Monday to kind of give you guys that stuff so you guys can hit those early betting lines. So let's recap week 0. One of the big teams and games that we were looking forward to, at least here at Campus to Canton, was the Western Kentucky versus Austin Peay game. Bailey Zappi, Jared Stearns were amazing for us when it came to CFF last year. They win 38-27 here against Austin Peay. Austin Reed, the quarterback, 36.6 fantasy points in that game. It's not a bad day. We expected a little bit more, but I think this is what we're likely going to get out of him every single week. Moxley and some of those guys have mentioned many a time that maybe we were chasing a little bit of production here with the fact that Bailey Zappi, Jared Stearns did what they did. Kitley leaves as well, that maybe we were chasing those points, and I think we were. Reed, again, really good game, but I don't think we should expect like 40 to 50 points like we were getting out of Bailey Zappi most weeks. Another interesting game that I was trying to watch as much as possible, had a big draft going on for me this weekend, was the Nebraska Northwestern game. I am honestly extremely surprised that Nebraska was not able to win this. 28-31 loss to Northwestern. Ryan Helinski came on strong. I was not expecting him to have 300 passing yards. Does get 28 fantasy points. Just a big day for him. We also had Cam Porter had a pretty good day here with 94 yards and 1 on the ground, getting 14.9 fantasy points for you. But the big one was Evan Hull. We know Cam Porter coming back from injury, wasn't expecting him to get a full workload. Evan Hull has a really good day, kind of totes the rock for the most part. 22 carries for 119 yards and 1 touchdown. Does get 55 yards receiving as well. 29 points in fantasy. So great day for Evan Hull. Moving forward, it's going to be very interesting to see how these two split the backfield. Cam Porter was really good before he got injured last year, and Evan Hull stepped up and looked really well. Noah Hills, one of the contributors here for Campus to Canton, did an episode on his Hero RB show earlier this season talking about how Evan Hull was a guy who had possibly high-end draft capital coming as in like day 2, as an outside guy that we at the time did not even have ranked at Campus to Canton. So great call by him. Noah knows his running backs. You can follow him at Noah More Parties on Twitter. Great call, and I'm very interested to see what those guys do, continue moving forward. Another game that was interesting was the Illinois-Wyoming game. So Illinois wins 38-6. And we'll start with Josh McCray, who does get injured in this game, unfortunately. As you can see, he just had the 8 carries for 33 yards, does get, just 2 catches for 7. The issue is obviously he goes down with a non-contact injury. As of now, we still don't know what happened to him. Brett Bielema said they're waiting on test, but typically, obviously, you go down with no contact. That's not good. Isaiah Williams, the other backup, got hurt in this game, or at least it looked like it. Word has now come out from Brett Bielema that it was just cramping. They could have put him back in, but they just decided not to with kind of the game out of hand. But the big one was Chase Brown. We talked a lot about him on our Saturday morning show on the tailgate. He's been very good. He has these games where he has 151 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. He did get 3 catches for 16 yards and a touchdown. A really great play on his touchdown as well. I mean, it was very impressive, and he looked impressive. My biggest fear with Chase Brown is he is just inconsistent at times. You watch him, and you go look at what he's done, and he'll have a couple games where he gets you like 40 or 50 yards rushing, and then he gets 151, 200 plus, and then it goes back down to 40 yards rushing. And it's just, you want more consistency, right? You want him to be closer, even if it's just like 100 yards a week. Like, that's really good. But I'm very intrigued to continue watching his storyline moving forward and what that means, because he could also be a very sneaky guy. Now, he's not very big. He's about 205 pounds, but I still think he's going to be a very interesting guy for the NFL draft. Drake May started this week for the North Carolina Tar Heels against Florida A&M Rattlers. And the Rattlers gave them a run for their money for a little bit for the first couple quarters. Then they pulled away. 50.2 points in fantasy for Drake May this weekend. 294 yards passing with 5 touchdowns. Did carry the ball for 55 yards as well. And their freshman running backs had a really good day. George Pettaway, a guy who came in spring, we thought was going to be very good in the game for the running back side of things. Just 51 yards and a touchdown. Did get his 1 reception, but it was in the backfield, and he got tackled for a loss. But it was Omarion Hampton who came on strong. 101 rushing yards on 14 carries, 2 touchdowns, 24.65 fantasy points. Just a great day for Hampton. Felix was much higher on him than all of us. A lot of us on the freshman team or the recruiting team were a little bit worried about what his production might look like there. But with the injury to Bridge Brooks, who's now out for the season, I mean, Hampton may have just walked right into a really good role for the North Carolina Tar Heels. So if he's available on your waiver, he's a guy that I would definitely look at And Austin and Colin will be here tomorrow morning to tell you about that waiver wire. The last game that I want to talk about before we dive into some high school stuff is Vandy. Vandy comes on and beats Hawaii 63-10. Moxley mentioned it in the early betting lines piece that he just did for us. Like, he was on this beforehand, but it was like moving up the line. Like, okay, bet it. But like started getting up to 9-10 points. Like, man, that may be a little bit too much. It did not matter. Vandy poured it on Hawaii. So Mike Wright had himself a day. 146 yards passing, were 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, but 163 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. 47 points in fantasy. And then Raymond Davis, if you watch Tailgate the morning, I told you to take his over on rushing yards on Prize Picks. It was set at 72. He goes over 87 yards, does get a touchdown. I mean, he's consistently gone over that number, which was kind of my point. And Hawaii is just really bad defensively against the pass and the run. So last but not least, before we get out of here, I want to take you guys through a run through on the quarterbacks. It's a very intriguing class for the 2023 group. We got Arch Manning, Malachi Nelson, Nico Yamalava, who has got one of the biggest NIL deals currently. All these guys played this weekend. I just want to give you guys a run through. So it is very hard to find stats on high school players. It's not centralized. Like, you can go practically anywhere to get college football ones, NFL ones, obviously, because it's a major thing. And even college football is like, it's a big money. High school football is still, while it's celebrated and loved, especially in the South and a lot of states up north that really celebrate it, it's still kind of hard to get all that stuff together. But go to On3. They have a bunch of this stuff. And so I'm going to give you some of the ones here. So Jackson Arnold, Denton Geyer, they won a massive game this weekend against Rockwell, 47-14. If you watch our Friday Night Light show, it showed a couple of clips of that. Arnold had a great day, 12-17 for 203 yards and 3 touchdowns. Plus, he had 86 rushing yards, a 63-yard rushing touchdown, which at one point his fastest point on that run was clocked at 20.5 miles an hour by our guy, big wide receiver guy, Matt, on the recruiting team. Malachi Nelson and Los Alamitos. So I watched most of this game. I missed like the first 6 or 7 minutes of the first quarter, but I watched the rest of it. They struggled here against American Heritage, who has got Brandon Ennis and Mark Fletcher both going to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Those guys also had really good games in this one. So Malachi Nelson finishes 19-33 for 213 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. It's his first loss of his senior season. He was able to hit Mekhi Lemon for a couple touchdowns. Mekhi Lemon made a beautiful catch in that game too, by the way. Go search Solving Football at Solving Football. He posted it. It was like a weird, defender was right on him, and Malachi Nelson put it perfectly, like right out of bounds, and Malachi Lemon caught it. I'm going to try and move the camera with like one hand and brought it in out of bounds. It was a beautiful catch, but he, struggled a little bit in this game, was a little bit surprising. American Heritage, one of the better schools in the nation, as is the Los Alamitos, so I was not expecting them to struggle that much. Nico Yamalava, who is obviously committed to Tennessee, he had a 14-22 passing day for 173 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He did also add a rushing touchdown. They ended up turning a 16-6 deficit and turned it into a 32-16 lead as they won over Whittier, California in Lucerna. Dante Moore. So this one is very interesting with Moore. In my opinion, he's the second best quarterback in this class, but he had a rough day in Indy against Warren Central. They lost 43-26. He went 17-35 for 381, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but he also took like 12 sacks, which is not great, especially for a guy that we believe is like one of the best pocket poised quarterbacks in this class. You don't want to see him take 12 sacks. Christopher Vizina, who's committed to Clemson, had a really bad game in week 1. They were blanked against Clay Cooksville, I believe is what the name of the Coolville. I don't remember. Chalkville, Clay Chalkville, I believe. I don't remember, guys. I apologize. But they got blanked by them in game 1, comes back and leads a game-winning drive to win 23-21 against Spain Park. He ends up going 22 of 31 for 262 yards and 1 touchdown. Plus, he had a 96 rushing yards and 1 touchdown as well. I believe he was clocked as well at like 20.6 miles per hour on his big run, which is like 50-something plus yards. Jaden Rashada, who plays at Pittsburgh, California, committed to Miami. He has a big win over Vallejo, California. They win 59-0. He just goes 9 of 14 passing for 123 yards, 2 touchdowns, 29 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns. very intriguing to see where he goes and if he continues to move up recruiting boards. He's a guy that we really liked early on in the process, has kind of fallen a little bit in some of our at Campus to Canton's quarterback rankings. My guy, Austin Novosad. So I was really intrigued to watch this game. Unfortunately, was not available anywhere, but I have seen some of the highlights. He beats Vandergrift 23-20. He also led Dripping Springs, the high school that he plays for, on a game-winning drive where they kicked a field goal to win it right as time was expiring. He goes 18-30 for 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. It's very good for a guy who was in 5A and has moved up to 6A, which is the highest level of high school competition in Texas, and he has a really good game to kick it off with. Again, if you guys watched the Friday Night Lights episode, I posted a lot of highlights from this game. St. John Bosco traveled from California to play Allen, Texas. I was all in on this game. Pierce Clarkson did not disappoint. They won 52-14. He went 9-19 for 156 yards and 3 passing touchdowns, plus added 62 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown, and was pulled in the third quarter because it just really wasn't a game. I was really impressed with what he did there. It was a great day for all of these top quarterbacks. I'm really intrigued to see where this continues to go with these guys. A big season for a lot of them is, in my opinion, the top I have 3 in my tier 1, and it's Malachi Nelson, Dante Moore, and Arch Manning. But my tier 2 is really close, including Jackson Arnold, the Oklahoma commit, and Austin Novosad, the Baylor commit. We're almost there into tier 1. They're all very close. Malachi is separated from me above everybody else, but I'm intrigued to see what happens the rest of the season for these guys. Continue to recap high school stuff as, again, we want to keep you guys abreast of what's coming to college football here in the next couple of years, especially those of you who play CFF and C2C leagues. You need to know who's next. We're going to keep doing that for you guys here. Reminder, I won't be back again until Friday. We're going to have Thursday games to talk about on Friday, so I cannot wait for that. We'll preview some of the games for the weekend, including the high school games of the weekend. And tomorrow, the Campus Life duo of Austin and Colin will be joining you guys early in the morning to give you guys a look at the waiver wires. Excuse me. As we head into Week 1, guys, it is officially here. I cannot wait. Real full-on Week 1 college football games kick off on Thursday with a lot of really great games. Get ready, because it's finally here. I'll talk to you guys again on Friday. Have yourselves a great morning. And before I get out of here, completely forgot that, as I mentioned earlier in the show, we are announcing our players of the week. So I gave you our freshman of the week, which was Omarion Hampton, but I've got to give you our player of the week. We talked about him earlier in the Illinois game, stepped up, had a huge game for the Fighting Illini. Congratulations to Chase Brown. Campus to Canton's a player of the week for week 0, 19 rush yards for 151, 19 attempts for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns, 3 receptions for 16 yards and 1 touchdown. Chase Brown, the official first player ever to be a Campus to Canton player of the week.